The Millennium developmental goals are 8 international goals that were created at the UN's Millennium Summit in 2000. Currently, 193 countries are committed to accomplishing the 8 goals by 2050. Many countries have already achieved this goal, but there are still plenty of places where primary school-age children remain out of school. It is estimated that more than 57 million children still remain out of school. Although there is still room for improvement, 90% of the goal has been accomplished. The number of primary school-aged children rose by more than 40 million between 1999 and 2007. In sub-Saharan Africa, the number of students increased from 58% to 74% in the same time period. There are several factors involved in keeping children from attending school. Some of the factors involved are location, gender, language, cost, and of course, conflict. In order to achieve universal primary education, each one of these factors must be dealt with.
I moved to America 12 years ago with my wife, Terry, and our 2 kids. Actually, truthfully, we moved to Los Angeles. Thinking we were moving to America, but anyway, it's a short plane ride from Los Angeles to America. I got here 12 years ago, and when I got here, I was told various things, like, Americans don't get irony. Have you come across this idea? It's not true. I've traveled a whole length and breadth of this country. I have found no evidence that Americans don't get irony. It's one of those cultural myths, like the British are reserved. I don't know why people think this. We've invaded every country we've encountered. But it's not true Americans don't get irony, but I just want you to know that that's what people are saying about you behind your back. You know, when you leave living rooms in Europe, people say, thankfully, nobody was ironic in your presence. But I knew that Americans get irony when I came across that legislation, No Child Left Behind. Because whoever thought of that title gets irony. Don't they? Because it's leaving millions of children behind. Now, I can see that's not a very attractive name for legislation. Millions of children left behind. I can see that. What's the plan? Well, we propose to leave millions of children behind, and here's how it's going to work. And it's working beautifully. In some parts of the country, 60% of kids drop out of high school. In the Native American communities, it's 80% of kids. If we halved that number, one estimate is it would create a net gain to the US economy over 10 years of nearly $1 trillion. From an economic point of view, this is good math, isn't it? That we should do this. It actually costs an enormous amount to mop up the damage from the dropout crisis. There are 3 principles on which human life flourishes, and they are contradicted by the culture of education under which most teachers have to labour and most students have to endure. The first is this, that human beings are naturally different and diverse. Education under No Child Left Behind is based on not diversity, but conformity. What schools are encouraged to do is to find out what kids can do across a very narrow spectrum of achievement. One of the effects of No Child Left Behind has been to narrow the focus onto the so-called STEM disciplines. They're very important. I'm not here to argue against science and math. On the contrary, they're necessary, but they're not sufficient. A real education has to give equal weight to the arts, the humanities, to physical education. An awful lot of kids... Sorry, thank you.
Universal primary education is within sight. Although millions of children today still remain out of school, the goal is closer than ever to being achieved. It will take resources and it will take time, but as long as we all put in the effort, together, we can achieve enlightenment.